Give you a quick example of tabletalk and how it can be used with a SQLite database. The purpose of tabletalk is for you to be able to take your database backend, create contexts with the tables that would be the group of tables that you want to communicate with like a person, and then be able to type queries and interact with it with an LLM. So again, the example here is going to be an SQLite database. So here we can see we have our mock infra, and if we go into it and we check the tables, we can see we have calendar events, daily stats, and workouts. So what you're going to want to initially do is pip install tabletalk, but I already have it installed. So I'm going to initialize it within my directory. It's going to create the tabletalk YAML file, which is the config file, as well as a default context for us to customize. And so here we can see the structure. And if we go into our config file, by default, it's going to look at BigQuery. But you can look at the documentation for your database backend to see what fields are required within the config here. But we're going to do SQLite, as was said in the example, which means we don't need these fields. And we need the database path, which is going to be mock infra.db. Again, you can see this on the documentation. For the LLM, we currently support OpenAI and Anthropic, and here you'd be able to specify specific details. For example, I'm going to bump this up to 1,000 max tokens. So now we've set up our config file, and we have to go into our context and see that we have a default context. So first, I'm going to rename this to daily facts. And then let's go in and edit it. So these descriptions are optional. So for some, I'll fill them out, and for some, I won't. But this is where you can start to customize how you want it to feel. So again, this is going to be daily facts. It's going to be the name of the context. Say this context is meant to take in information about my calendar, daily stats for water drinking and sleep, and workout performance. So set the wrap there, and then we can see that we need to change our data set. So obviously it's SQLite, so we just need to label that there, and I'm going to knock off this description and all of these as well for simplicity's sake. So again, we need to put in our tables that we looked at earlier. It's going to be calendar events, daily stats, and workouts. And actually, I am going to add a description to this one that basically says this contains daily information about weather, the amount of water that I drink, the amount of sleep and quality of sleep, and workout, and yeah, that's it. So now I've given a description, and we've set up what this context should be. So now I can go back into the root directory, and I can say tabletalk apply. And it's going to get all that information and store it in an LLM-friendly way for the schema, which is generated under manifests. So now we have two ways of interacting with our contexts. We can query with the CLI, or we can use a locally hosted web app using Serve. So first, we're going to look at the CLI version, where you can come in and say tabletalk query. And you can select your daily facts that we just defined. And we could say, how has my sleep varied over the past 2 days? And we can see that it took what our question was. It gave us the logic and response in the query to accomplish the goal. So you could then run this query, or you could ask follow-up questions or more in-depth questions. How does it relate to how often I work out? And so we can start to see, okay, we can start to break that down and start to really interact with our data and ask questions about it without seeding the actual data to any of these LLMs, just the structure. So again, if you want to do that on a web interface, you could type in serve, and what this is going to do is create that locally hosted Flask application. And we can see here that we have tabletalk and we have our manifest on the side here. So what we're able to do is select our manifest, say, how does my water intake correlate with my sleep quality? So you can see we didn't have enough tokens to get the complete response back, but it's going to do the same thing. You just get it on a more visual basis. So this is the general idea behind tabletalk. Again, you can connect your database backend, define the relationships you want to talk in, and then be able to ask whether in the CLI or in the web UI. So I would love feedback, and if you get to play with this, whether it's personal projects or whatever you want to do, it'd be great to see, and I hope it's helpful for you guys.